I dyed my hair, guys. Well, I bleached it and then I dyed it. And I really like it. I really like it. It didn't come out the way I wanted it to come out, but then it still came out nice and I look good, so it doesn't matter. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Yeah, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome to my channel. I'm Lynette. Yeah, I am going to be moving on to lesson number 2 on my 22 at 22. If you don't know what that is, please go watch my 22 lessons at 22. I think that just speaks for itself. I'm extending the series basically. So yeah, lesson number 2 is, now I don't have my glasses on. What was I thinking? Okay, lesson number 2 is, if you don't tell them, they won't know. I would say this is basically, like an emphasis on communication. That's the lesson, just basically says exactly what it is. If you don't tell people how you feel, then they won't know. This is not like some superhero movie where like they can read your mind, or they see into the future and then they know whatever is supposed to happen and stuff like that. The way you're supposed to communicate with your parents and tell them there's going to be prize giving, I want a prize, or the way your school communicates with your parents about things like that, the way you tell your siblings to cook food at a specific time. If you didn't tell those people those things, then they wouldn't know, and they wouldn't know how to like act. I always say to people, you tell people what you want, or you tell someone what you want or how you expect things to be done, and then they act accordingly. At the end of the day, at least you've said that you wanted things done a certain way. You have a way of holding people accountable, because you said it, you told them. I think it's really good to get things in text. I don't like discussing important things over the phone, because I have screenshots. If someone says you never said that, screenshots, I'm taking the screenshots out and showing you like, this is what you said on this day. And I usually remember a lot of things that people say. So yeah, communicate, guys. It's not difficult. Don't be afraid to tell, like I said this in my last video, don't be afraid to tell someone if you didn't like something that they did. Don't be afraid to tell someone if you liked something that they did. Like, I promise you, it's always so much better if you let things out. Well, some things, like things that you know are going to benefit either you or the person that you're telling these things to. Because at the end of the day, you're just going to have a bunch of words that are left unsaid, and then that's a whole bunch of regret that you don't want to be moving around with. You know, that at least I tried, right? At least I tried. It's always better to try something out and be like, okay, I didn't like that, then cool. At least you tried. I used to, let me tell you why I basically realized that this is something that's really, really important. Um, I used to be so scared to ask my mom to go anywhere, or even ask my dad. Worse, ask my dad. When I was at school, obviously my dad was the one who would send me pocket money and stuff like that. And I'd be afraid to ask for more money, or just like ask my dad, Daddy, can I please have money to go out for lunch or whatever. My mom, so I'd go and ask my mom, and my mom would be like, why are you asking me when you know I'm not the one who's going to be giving you this money? Go ask your dad. And then I'd be like, why don't you ask him for me? Like, my mom's like, you have to grow up at some point. You have to know to ask people for things at some point. And if you can't ask your own parents for things, then what about the next person? Like, how are you going to be able to ask other people for things? When you're at work, how are you going to be able to ask other people for things? So then I ended up like, I would just ask my dad, like, silly things. Last year I took a long shot. I know my dad isn't really into these things, but then I was like, Daddy, can you please send me money for a wig when you send me my allowance? And then he's like, oh, how much? Guys, I was so shocked, and I was like, that's when I really realized, like, the worst a person could say is no. And I know, like, hearing a no leaves you like disappointed and feeling rejected or whatever, but at least you tried. Like, you'd rather know that the person really said no to you than imagine them saying no. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, yeah, I think it makes sense. You'd rather ask someone for something and have them saying no than you sitting the whole day and then something comes to pass. Like, I would want to go to a party, and then I'm afraid to ask my mom, and then now I'm thinking, if I had asked my mom, she probably would have just said yes. I remember I used to do that a lot. I'd be like, no, my mom will say no, so I'm not gonna go, or I'm not even going to ask, or whatever. And then when the thing is happening, or on the day, I'd be like, oh yeah, this person is having a birthday party or something like that. My mom would be like, oh, why didn't you tell me? You could have gone. And I'm like, I really should have just asked. I really should have just asked. You would rather hear a no than imagine the no that you probably might not even. You want to be in my video? Thanks. Thank you. Than imagining a no that could possibly have been a yes. You'd rather have the confirmation of words of, okay, I asked, I played my part, and this person played their part. End of story. Um, I think this is basically what I have to say on this video. I realized that you guys actually watch my shorter videos more, and I didn't have a lot to say on this. I'm probably going to do a video on communication because I think there's a whole lot more that can be said about communication on its own. But yeah, this is just basically tell people how you feel, tell people how you want things to be done for you. That's how you set boundaries, that's how you realize yourself, that's how you come to learn more about other people actually, because like I said, you tell them and they act accordingly. You do something and people act accordingly. At the end of the day, you've played your part. That's what I think, that's what's more important. You've played your part in whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. If you want someone to love you a certain way and you tell them like, I prefer things to be done like this for me, and then they act accordingly. If they don't do the things, like I'm not saying like force people to act a certain way or change people or something like that, but like if they decide, no, I'm going to push aside what you've told me, then you've seen this person's character. And I will relate a lot of things to my past relationships because those were all lessons learned. When I was dating this guy, I think I still do it, but now it's better. I used to communicate with statuses, guys. I used to be like, if something upset me, I'd write on my status. I wouldn't necessarily say like, this is what's irritated me or whatever, but like, putting memes or emojis or like sigh or things that are silly. And on my Twitter, I would retweet things and stuff like that. And then this guy told me like, why don't you just say it to me, because it's obvious that you're saying things to me. Like, yes, you post things for the world to see, but you're talking to one specific person. Why are you wasting your time? Kokanasina data. What if the person doesn't have data or Wi-Fi to see the rubbish that you're posting? Then what? Then what? Then what? Yeah, there's this guy who told me, he's like, no, you're passive aggressive. Like, if something is irritating you, just say it. Because at the end of the day, that's how you're progressive, guys. That's how you just move on with life. You say stuff, you finish the story, end of story. Like, it's done. Move on with life. And don't, like, do things like, don't say something and then the person responds, or you have a conversation and it's progressive or whatever. Don't now be like sticking with that story, like, I told you this, I told you this, I told you this. Don't tell a person something more than 3 times. Don't tell a person something more than 3 times. Because at the end of the day, like, I know it's probably like more than once. Like, some people would be like, don't tell someone something more than once, but I honestly feel like, don't, like, telling someone once is kind of difficult, because we expect people, like, we expect to tell people things and then expect them to change like there and then, like the next day we expect them to have been different. No, it's a process. People also need to process what you've said, learn how to do the things that you've said. Like, it's like school. You don't just get like an equation and then you can do it there and then. If you can do that, congratulations for being smart. Some of us are slow learners, things take time. So yeah, but if you say it one time and maybe give it some time, maybe a week, 2 weeks, a month, if you're feeling happy or feeling generous, yeah, and then after a month, if you've seen like, okay, nothing has changed, or obviously this conversation went up this person's bum, like let me try again. You say it differently. Look at how you said it the first time and think about how that person could be taking it. When you tell someone something, also, when you tell someone something, tell them bearing in mind that you are telling them from your perspective, but then they might not understand it the same way that you will understand it, because they've gone through things differently. So they might not even do like what you think they're going to do. Don't tell people something expecting them to act the exact same way that you would act if someone told you something. Yeah. Once again, I'm gonna check my book. I think I've said more than I actually wrote down. So yeah, let me see. Yeah, that was it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a little something. As usual, like if you have any questions or anything like that, don't be afraid to comment down below or DM me. If you have my app number, app me. I usually reply. I usually reply. But yeah, thank you guys for reaching the end of the video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.